So it's now my great pleasure to introduce Dr. David Hancock, who's been our chairman for the last 4 years and has a wide range of experience and knowledge in the industry for about 30 years, I believe, including helping to write a CIRIA guide on risk management. So well versed in this topic, often, and I've been joking up to now, but seriously, very complex topics where, and I'm just paraphrasing, just quoting David, where David manages to find wicked solutions. He's written a book about it, so look it up on Amazon. It is out there. He has changed jobs as of yesterday, so he's the construction director and infrastructure lead of NISTA. So if you're not familiar with NISTA, I'm not going to try and explain what the acronym stands for, although it says it there, so that's good. That helps. It's a merger of, a lot of you will remember the IPA, the Infrastructure Projects Authority, and the National Infrastructure Commission, NIC, and they've nicely managed to combine that into NISTA. So I'm sure David will be able to give you the corporate reasons and rationale behind that in a minute. But I'm really pleased that we do have David here today to speak to us about a very interesting and always topical, always current theme, which is embracing, so not playing lip service to it, but embracing and embedding risk leadership in construction. Over to David.
Thanks, Dirk. So actually that's what the title says, but I thought chairman's prerogative. I'm going to talk about 3 successful projects that I've been involved in, which I think are really exciting. And so I've called this From Palaces to Prisons via Antarctica. And you'll see why. Again, it looks a lot better if you don't put it in a straight line there, Dirk. If you kind of put it like that, it kind of doesn't look so. Yeah, that's my excuse anyway. So the first one I want to talk to you about is just down the road, Buckingham Palace. I'm involved in that. I sit on the committee there. For those of you that don't know what Buckingham Palace looks like, this is the palace. Back in 2017, I think it was, we came up with a proposal to refurbish Buckingham Palace because it had a lot of problems. You can see there, worn out woodwork, leaky plumbing. The radiators were on a system which they were either all on in the palace or all off. Which meant that if Princess Margaret was cold in there and she was the whole palace was on, and they couldn't put valves in there because what it would do, the pressure would be such in there that it was so old that we'd end up with leaks, and the last thing we needed were any leaks across it. Ancient wiring, you can see there 100 miles of electrical cable, and interesting wiring. So we would find when we did the surveys and that brand new plug or brand new switch, bit of cable, brand new. Go to the light, brand new. So we assumed that the whole cabling was brand new. And then when you got to the end of it and pulled it, you'd find that actually it was only brand new for that length. There was an old bit of the old stuff here, the black and the cables in there, in between, because that was a bit too difficult to get to. And the problem was, this wiring was one of the problems. We ended up with a problem at Windsor. You remember the fire at Windsor? So it was just a case, the palace was make do. The Queen had always been that kind of thing, we just make do. So we said all the boilers were out of life. And we said, the boilers are out of life. And she said, well, but they're working. And we go, yeah, but they're out of life. And she said, what does that mean? So, well, they'll break down soon. We said, well, when will they break down? And we go, well, we don't really know that, but they're out of life. We really need to replace them. But they're working. And you'd go, well, it's probably going to happen when they're on the full load in the winter, which is the worst possible time. So the palace really needed work on it. And you can see there's a section here pre-1820. The palace has built up over time. It didn't quite look that. You can see that pre-1820 is this bit. 1845 to 48, this was added, and they moved the arch away over to out of the way there, and then 1852 to 1855. And even in these bits, when you get on the inside and you look up, you can see that the good stuff was always down here. When they got to here, they must have run out of money because some of the masonry is a little bit ropey. So you could see that what happened was we had a 10-year plan we came up with, and said what we're going to do is we are going to do high priority. We're going to refurbish this to make it a fit palace for generations. And you can see done by Wings, but also what we've got here is all of the what we call high priority works, which are things like boilers. The boilers were old. And various bits going on. So we split it down into these sections, and I'm working across it. Governance structure. The thing about the palace is it's not just your normal kind of project. There are a lot of people involved in it. Treasury involved in here through Lord Chamberlain's committee. It's paid for by a sovereign grant. So what that means is it's a place where for all of the bits that the palace owns, so Grosvenor Square, the hotel, all the bits that they lend out, they give money back to Treasury, and Treasury gives them a percentage back a year, right? And that's the way it works. And so what that means is you can't overspend in a year. So if you're doing really well and you run out of money, and you can't borrow, apparently the palace is not allowed to borrow, and they can't go to the bank and say, can you give us a couple of million because we're doing the palace. So actually we ended up, in some cases, slowing down works because we ran out of money. NAO report kind of didn't go, but surely, if you're doing it for longer, David, that what it means is it's going to cost more. And you go, yes, we know that, but we can't borrow. So you can see here that the sovereign grant pays for it, and then they have the operations at the Royal Household. We have a programme management office run by Barbara with a programme director, and then you have the royal householders, and then Historic England, Westminster Council, all those things. So fantastic project with loads of people. And you've also got the collections manager. Thousands of things in there that are just priceless, and tens of little bits, and also everything they've been given, because some of them are in their private chambers. All the things they've been given are valuable. You can't just go, oh, well, that's an ashtray, we'll just chuck it away or whatever. It's probably come from Louis XIV or something. Hundreds of clocks throughout the place. And they have one person who's in charge of the clocks. You can just imagine that the weekend just gone, running round trying to put them all forward an hour. Great job. But a fantastic job. They have a challenge board. I sit on the challenge board here. Below it, these people here are the so that's Tony, who's head of the household. He runs the household, ran it for the Queen, now runs it for the King. Barbara, who is the project manager, absolute fantastic program manager for the whole program. You can see Kerry runs the how all the offices, so all the people that do the sweeping of the floors and the household, and when you come in they greet you and give them medals and all this. There's thousands of them. Paul runs the property, so we were doing a project refurbishment, but Paul is the property who owns all the property, so he owns looking after also Windsor, Grosvenor Place, all those things. So when we finish our bit, we have to hand over to Paul. And then you have, keeper of the privy purse. Tim, who's the director of the Royal Collection, who's all the paintings and everything. So really an eclectic, but their job is to challenge the project across it. And here you can see Barbara's bit, which is the office, all the stuff going on here. There's a program management office, Kerry doing this, and Tony running this. All the companies on the outside. So really quite a complex set of things to put together in order to deliver it. all the little group, East-West Connect that you'd expect in there. You've got Mighty, who do the cleaning, because they do cleaning through there. Fantastic stuff. You're probably familiar, ceremonies that happen there. You've seen them on the telly. So while we were doing this over the 10 years we're still doing, we're in 8 year now, we can't stop this. So this has to carry on. This, and of course there's all the garden parties that people get invited to and all the rest. All of that has to continue while we do this refurbishment. Here's the staterooms, you can see there. That's the principal picture palace, and you can see there we had to redo all the roofing in there because it had just got old. And these pictures are just priceless, you know, if we get leaks in there. So incredible building to work in. Risk. Now, any of you engineers know why you shouldn't do this to arches? Which is cutting it and then nailing a bit on to make it back to an arch.
Even as a non-engineer.
Yeah. This here, and they've done this notching to get the pipes through. Anybody know why you shouldn't notch? And this is actually below here is the stateroom, one of the staterooms. These are, they're curved roofs here, and a lot of the gild you see is kind of, I know it's paper mache and gilded, you know, it's quite elaborate. But these are the kind of things you find where you can see all the way notched all the way along here, and these beams are actually taking loads. Lots of these we found in all sorts of places where we had to suddenly replace things because in the past somebody had to put a cable in, beams got in the way, so David would notch, you know, do the cable. Here we found what we thought was a brick wall. This had tiles on front of it, and it was for fire protection. Turned out to be wooden bricks. Anybody know how good wooden bricks are at fire protection? Do you think they give you your 30-minute or your 2-hour thing? But because when we first went there, we were tapping the tile. Oh yeah, there, it's concrete, and we take it off. So a huge amount of work was discovery. And one of the risks and one of the things we looked at if you're working on an old building, is you need about 15 to 20% risk money for this kind of stuff. And people say, well, what? You say, I could never have said, well, I expect somebody's chopped through the beams, David. And you go, yeah, risk register, somebody's chopped. No, it doesn't work like that. But you discover things which you just were not expecting. And that was one of the things we learned as we went through, was that we had to put things right. And the next thing you have to do is come up with a repair scheme. You can't just go, pretend you didn't see it, put it back, put the boards back over it. Right, so you then need a repair scheme. We had Heritage coming in to make sure that the Heritage repair scheme was, you know, within Heritage, and lots of these discovery things going on across the palace. And you'd think, you know, somebody would look after the palace quite well. Again, on the reservicing, as you can see, cabling, the old black and red cabling, lots of that all around the place. You can see down here lots of all the pipes and that when we took up the floors, because it had been built over time, some of the floors actually hid steps down and out to the courtyard before the new bit was built on and brought in. So incredible amount of work. By the way, all these boards have to go back in exactly the same place we took them off. And in fact, we've got to try and put some of the nails in there. We have to try and replace the nails in there because that's what Heritage England say, you know, it's such an important building. And then this is the kind of heating and hot water which we replace on the main things, putting in new stuff because it was all out of dated. And as I say, keeping systems running alongside. You can see here we had temporary boilers put in to strip out the old boilers, temporary services in the basement. You can see that's the main square there. We put trumped oil across it so that people, you know, the things to make it look like it. And this is the NAO report. This is what I'm proud of. The NAO report says the householders managed the 369 million 10-year Buckingham Palace reservicing programme well and has demonstrated good. This is the NAO. This is the only NAO report I've ever had that actually says you did a good job, David. You know, Crossrail. Go and look at a Crossrail NAO report. Not so good. Strong focus on keeping within budget. Householders worked hard to engage stakeholders with the palace, through the supply chain. Palace has remained operational throughout. The householders responded well to challenge and assurance, fostering a culture of honesty. I mean, imagine that to write that in a, and I assume that in other NAO reports, maybe we don't get a culture of honesty. And the overall value for money of the programme. So this was done, fantastic programme, was done, keeping the palace going in that building with all the things we found, on time, on budget, and people were happy with. So that's a good thing. So that's my first good project. Next one, I'm involved, another one, Antarctica. We're building something in Antarctic. I went down there. This is, for those who don't know where Antarctica is, this is Antarctica, right? South America, Falkland Islands, they'll come in it later on. Rothera Research Station sits about here. The other one that you may have seen is Halley Research Station, which is here. That's the one that's on legs that we pulled 28 kilometres out the way. The one that looks like Space 1999. So that's Antarctica. To give you some, the British Antarctica, we have a big section, a wedge of it, because we were there first. There are certain people that lay claim to it. We also have the responsibility for Cygnus Island as well, and South Georgia. But to give you some idea of the size of it, where we do the research across here, that's the flights we take internally. We have our own internal aircraft. That is the equivalent of flying that sort of thing in Europe. So don't think that Antarctica is small. It isn't small, it's big. You know, and we put scientists in all of these places. You can see the South Pole down here, but that's Europe. So you get some idea of the scale of the work we do out in Antarctica. How do we get there? It's quite interesting. We had 2 ships. We now only have 1. Anybody know what the ship's called?
Shackleton.
No. RSS Sir David Attenborough. So the RSS Sir David Attenborough, where it goes down there, and we send it down in the winter, which is the winter there, which is now here summer. We have it up in the Arctic, but it goes down there. You can see it gets down the way, picks people up normally at the Falkland Islands, and takes people in from the Falkland Islands. The other way you can go in is we have our own aircraft. We have our own flight down at Antarctica, and we bring the aircraft down from Canada. And again, in the winter there, in the summer here, we put them up in the Arctic. But they come down all the way down, and normally what they would do is they would pick you up at Port Arenas, and we would fly in. That's the aircraft we get down there. The way we go is normally we have a flight in for some of the contractors into Santiago, Chile, or we can fly into directly with British Airways to fly to Santiago, Chile, and then some of the people go to Port Arenas. If you want to get to Halley, the only way into Halley is through South Africa. We have to go out to South Africa to get there. But that shows you the routes in. In 2018, I went down by aircraft to Port Arenas, to Santiago, then to Port Arenas, and then flew into Rothera. Quite an interesting flight, in so much as you don't know what the weather's like there, and there gets a point of no return, which is, it doesn't matter what the weather is, we've got to go because we can't go back. And then the second time I went down was I flew with the MOD to the Falkland Islands from Brize Norton near Oxfordshire, and then 5 days across the Drake Passage in the RSS Sir David Attenborough, which is also an interesting. So wherever way you go, it's quite interesting. Here you see that's the aircraft at Brize Norton. We stop in Ascension Island because you have to fuel somewhere, where you're put in a cage and you're not allowed out of the cage because Ascension Island has an American base there, and you know how touchy the Americans are about things. So you sit there, have a little bit of a wander around, and then get back on the plane, arrive in Stanley. You then get on HIS, which is the RSS Sir David Attenborough. you've not been on before, you get this, which is heavy weather is expected overnight. Please ensure your cabins and working ends are secure. And what they mean is because when you get there, it's like this. 7-metre waves and 70-knot winds, which, believe you me, any of you that said this, that's pretty hectic. And these boats, this ship is not that big. So exciting way down there. That's the RSS Sir David Attenborough. There's a little yellow thing on here we call Boating McBoatface, which is a drone we pull behind. But you can see that was also a government project to build that. Was on the GMPP to build that. That's what Rothera looks like. That's how big it is. That's the runway. That's the ship, just to point things out. This is the new building we're building, which we'll talk about out there. This is the old buildings down here. That's the fuel dump, and that's the aircraft hangar. And that's it. And we normally put people out there for between 6 to 18 months. Yeah, so the aircraft left in March because you can't land. This is what it looks like round about now, which means that's pretty short, as you can see. We can't extend the runway because this is basically the top of a mountain, and that's just a drop off there. So we can't extend it, and with the ice on there, not so good for stopping. So we don't send them down from March onwards. The last ship will go in June to take all the people off, and then we leave 30 people on there over the winter because we're good like that. And they stay there during the whole winter. And they have to do research. So this bay here is normally, we do diving in this bay right the way through the winter, and they have to pick up sort of crustaceans and all that from the surface, from the seabed, to see what climate change is doing. And a lot of the work we do there around is climate change. So this is the old base. Here you can see that's when we're going down, this is what we had there first of all. You can see the airplanes. This is obviously the summer because you can see the runway. We had to build a new wharf while out there because we got a new ship. And then we said, yeah, 120 million, we got a new ship. And then somebody said, it's too big to land where we're there. We're going to have to build a new wharf, aren't we? Otherwise, we'd have been stuck off here just unloading it. That's kind of not a good idea. This is one of the problems you get at the bottom of the runway. You can see that's the runway there. And every now and again, something like that appears, which is not very good to try and to fly off. But you can see here the icebergs come off. There's a glacier just over here where the icebergs come off and they swirl around in this bay. That's the kind of new dock there. And that's what the old base looked like. This is what the new base looks like. You can see it's quite a lot bigger. Sits here, has a new control tower there. You can see the new control tower there. Site-wide services on these things here. It is pretty cold in the winter. That's me there feeling very, very cold. That's the old buildings there, which we're hoping to remove away. And this all had to come down in these containers. So we took the whole of that building down in containers. We did a practice. We actually put some of it together to make sure, because when you get down there and go, oh, Dirk, I thought you had the widget. No, David, I thought you had the widget. You can't leave anything on the deck, on the decking or anything left behind on the shore. It's down there, Discovery Building. It's a fantastic building. You can see the size of it there. We're going to move everything into it. It is quite an exciting building. Everything comes down there, and all the old stuff will go back into these, and we have to bring it back. We can leave nothing in Antarctica, so we bring all the old stuff back. But this is that's the water, because obviously we've got desalination plants because we can't drink salt water, so water there. Big generators, we're in the process at the moment. We've just switched over the old generators onto the new generators, and we've got to run it for 6 weeks before the last ship comes out. So we've got confidence that the new ones will run before we leave those 30 people over the winter there, for obvious reasons. But that's it. They're all coming back in there again. Really successful project, going well. We had to think about some of the risks. There was 150 construction people joining 100 scientists. Yeah, you can imagine that how that is on the. You can see how small this is. I mean, it's really, you're really in a tight area and they're down there for 6 to 9 months. We're trying to extend the season so we can get much work done. And you know, there is a bar there. And at one point when the scientists were there, when I first went down, the scientists were trusted to maintain their alcohol content, right? However, with 150 construction people coming down, we decided that we might have to put a few things in place to kind of say you're only allowed 2 cans. You've got to make sure you don't store the cans overnight so they go crazy. They're only allowed 2 cans of beer a night. But the other thing is constant daylight. It's really easy for them to go, oh, I just want to finish. You know, it's still light, David. Why can't we keep going? So we have to make sure that they keep the shift patterns going. They have different shift patterns to the scientists. What do we do about all the plastics waste? All the things you were talking about earlier, we can't leave anything down there. One of the problems is, you know, we quite often in construction sites use all that orange gauze, you know, the plastic stuff to stop people walking around. We can't do that. The winds will rip it to shreds, and then we'll end up with plastic all over Antarctica, which is not a good look. And what do you do in your downtime? You know, it is that. There you go. That is the whole of the area. You know, you can't just say to, oh, you just go off, go and have a walk, go and have a wander. You know, because the chances are that you won't come back. The nearest next base is 1,000 miles away, and that's Argentinian base. Yeah, for those old enough to know that that's not always a good place to go. There really is nowhere else to go. So the people there, the contractors working there, have to get on. You can't, and I'm sure you will watch Big Brother or all these, you know, things. What happens is little things get massively magnified. So we had to think about how we're going to get all these contractors who love being their picture on top of there by the drone and stuff. But how do we do it? And so a lot of the risk we did on there was about behaviour. How do we get all those people to work together in Antarctica, 10,000 miles away, get them there, get them back, get them safely. You'll probably have read in the papers the Germans fell out with each other on one of their, in Antarctica they've fallen out with each other, and somebody got stabbed in one of the German bases. Well, the thing is, everything is really magnified. You have seen all those things where, I don't know, what's it called, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, or whatever, where people say that when you're in that kind of community, that somebody bugs you, there is nowhere to go. You know, and you've got, you know, some of these people are driving big bits of kit. So the risk management on that, a lot of behaviours. Ellen is in charge of the Antarctic programme. I don't want to say it's because we had women that I think we had a better, but at the time, the base commander was also a woman, and Jane, who is CEO of BAS, is a woman as well. I think it shows that in actual fact, some of that diversity actually helps with keeping. I can't. It would have been like Lord of the Flies if it had just been blokes, you know. For those of you that met it, but again, fantastic project, 10,000 miles away, really successful. As I say, we're doing the changeover now. It's taken 3 years, but it's actually a year and a half because we can't do anything in the winter. It's minus 30 and dark and full darkness. Any of you that think you can do some good construction in minus 30, full black, then good luck to it. So we can only work for 6 months of the year. And then the good thing is 80% of the people wanted to go back the next year. You know, we actually had a set of people who actually kind of enjoyed that. We don't do psychometric testing, but we do interviews and they, because the BAS people, because the people who are out there, scientists, and been out there so much, they kind of know what they're looking for. You're not looking for completely dull, and you're not looking for, Yay! You kind of just want somebody who's pretty stable going through that. But yeah, so risk management, a lot again about the risk management was on the behavioural side of risk. And our last one is the new prisons programme, which I was last week Thursday. We just opened Millsyke up in just outside York. It's our first all-electric prison, so it meets with the net zero and stuff. To give you an extent, the prison programme was 20,000 places under the last government. It's 14,000 under this government because we've already delivered 6,000. So it's the same thing, but different targets. You can see it's pretty much the thing about the prisons programme is one of the things about prisons is you have to be able to be locked up close to your family so that they can visit you. So that's why you need a good spread of prisons. We had four new prisons on there. Millsyke is the one, 1,468 prisoners. You can see Grendon, Garth, and Gartree are the ones we're doing next. These we set up an alliance. Keir, O'Rourke and Waits, 4 New Prisons Alliance, because there's 4 new prisons. And you can see that the whole thing there is we use them to collaborate in order to deliver. Basically, the prisons are repeat. So here is the prisons. So this was Foss Way, which was our first one we did. And what you can see is repeat. It is that. This is 5 wells. Repeat. It's exactly the same in a different thing. And you can see the only other bits here we have to put workshops in. These are these are class, what they call Cat D prisoners, which are rehabilitation. They're towards the end of their sentencing. They're still quite dangerous, but they're towards the end of it, and we're looking to release them into society. This again was the next one. You can see, for those of you familiar with panelised, you can see all of this is modular, basically. Repeat. We buy it from a factory. It's made in a factory, and we put it together almost like Lego. Again, M&E, single unit, gets dropped in from here. That unit goes there. That unit goes there. 3 floors, 3 units. Repeat. T60s they're called. That's what the cells look like. That is a corridor, not any of you see porridge with the big nets. We don't have the big nets on them and stuff. Somebody said to me, I went to university, look like that, David. So you can see, and the rooms here are they look a bit like IKEA furniture. They are plastic and stuff. Mainly toilets, no Lucy. But the other thing about the toilet is the shower. So when they have a shower, it cleans the area. Because if any of you have been to prisons can be quite interesting for hygiene purposes. But they all have a single cell with a shower in there. If you go to, I've been to a few out to Bullingdon near Aylesbury, communal showers. Any of you that are old enough to remember those kind of school rugby ones that just went on forever, nowhere to hang their clothes up, no privacy. So they're locked up 23 hours a day in the cells, virtually. And then the time they get out is to do a bit of exercise or to go for a shower. And you've got no privacy when you go for a shower. So these provide an awful lot more dignity. Also, the prisoners tend to take their meals and eat back in their rooms. If you're in a double cell with the toilet in there, which is separated by a curtain, again, really kind of unhygienic. So the new prisons give a certain amount of dignity. They are better. What do you notice about the windows? No bars. Again, to give them some kind of thing. Believe you me, we had 3 big blokes with sledgehammers trying to get out, so they are bulletproof, kind of reinforced, but no bars on them, to give them some kind of feeling that you're not in a cage. Again, you can see coming on the tracks, you can see repeat. All of this using MMC category 2 penalised. And as I say, we say free issue, but it's because we know out of the factory what they cost out of the factory. And this is the platform approach. Where you can see where we're building it all like units. Outcomes, 60% of it delivered via one spatial platform, 48% more productive at week 80. And I think this is HMP5 wells, which was the first one we did at week 40, and this is how we've got better as we've done each one. So that was the first one. We did one in between and we got to this one. But you can see what we're doing is actually using, because we're using a prototype, first to class, for those of you always know the first to class takes longer and costs more money. But through that, what we've done is we refined it to get from that, and you can see how much more work we've done there. 50% greater program certainty. Price hasn't come down, but my risk envelope that I need for it and my contingency really tight, much tighter. So you can see manufactured there, 12.5 to 18% embodied carbon savings. So not operational carbon, this is embodied carbon. We've reduced down the embodied carbon in it. Weight removed from windows, 48% reduction in embodied carbon, 70% operational improvement by doing this. So you can see these are really massive. I mean, the MOJ, this project is really quite a success on many fronts. 2 suppliers now. So we're actually using the prisoners, we're training the prisoners to build the components so that when they come out, they get a job in the construction industry. At Millsite, Mighty have won the contract to run it. They don't normally run prisons, it's the first prison they've run. The thing is, Mighty Cleaning Services, ever heard of Mighty Cleaning Services? So they have a training base in there to train prisoners up at hygiene, and it's quite, you've got MVQs and all these qualifications now to clean toilets, bathrooms, train stations. So they're taking prisoners, training them up in their prison, which they're looking after. And then guess what? When they come out, they offer them a job and they don't have to train them because they've already trained them. So really good stuff for the basis. As I say, 47% site-based, 40% local labour we use, apprentices and trainees coming through there. And that's at Foss Way. That was our earlier one. Here, MMC in action. 13,000 components are tracked. You can see with Kia here, where we track them from, we get them from 2 factories, reducing cost through efficiency, reduce risk, carbon footprint reduce. There isn't a thing that this isn't kind of winning on compared to traditional build. And as I say, Millsite's our first all-electric prison in the UK. So we got a combination of clean energy and solar panels. So we're working with the local authority as well, to work with the local authority to get the stuff in here. But we've reduced it down to, so we actually get that all-electric prison coming in from the solar panel across there, and working in conjunction with the local authorities and the others around there. And that was it. So 3 projects, very different risks associated with them, and very different kind of solutions. But I think all 3 of them are really successful and show what we can do when this industry puts its mind to it, rather than everybody moaning about us. So thank you.